Administration's foot dragging in bringing Abrego Garcia home is absolutely unacceptable. They illegally abducted him and got him out of the country in 72 hours. They can get him home in less than that. All they need to do is send somebody from the U.S. Embassy to the prison and have him released. After all, the United States is paying El Salvador to keep him there. This was a 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court, and now they need to stop foot dragging and bringing him back. This is contemptuous action. I will leave it to the judge as to when contempt charges need to be filed, but he needs to come home, and he needs to come home now. I met just the other day with his wife, with his mother, with his brother. The family's traumatized. They're worried, of course, minute to minute about what might happen to him in that notorious prison. And the Trump administration needs to get him home, and they need to stop lying about this.
Great to have you with us. Please like, subscribe, and share. Everybody for being here. We are here at the Chris Highland Show. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Thank you for being here. We have a phenomenal show for you today. That was Senator Van Horn spouting a bunch of fake news garbage over the deportation of Abrego Garcia. We have covered that before. Obviously, that has been all the rage in the news lately, with the media running continually day after day with fake reports that he was mistakenly deported, that this was a huge major faux pas, this was a big deal. Oh my gosh, Trump is deporting citizens, he's deporting people who are illegally. None of these things are true. So thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Please smash that like button, subscribe, especially if you're new to this channel. Turn on those notifications so that you never miss when we drop content. Really like that everybody is here. Now, we've got a phenomenal show. We are going to cover this whole Abrego thing because President Bukele was in the White House today. And of course, the media wanted to make it about one focus. But I have got multiple clips. And if there's anybody that I'm developing a man crush on, it is Stephen Miller. The man is brilliant. He is a brilliant debater. He's a brilliant speaker. He is able to coalesce a lot of things. Now, the Trump administration has sent him out on all the shows. They've been great. But one fail, I've got this negative against the Trump administration in this particular issue. The explanation that Stephen Miller gives today, both in the White House, in the Oval Office, with Bukele and the whole media entourage present, and on the interviews that he did today, are absolutely amazing. If the Trump administration had proffered these explanations 7 days ago, 10 days ago, I think they could have completely flipped the narrative. They could have completely flipped the way that the American public perceived what the propaganda media was trying to do. So we're going to get into that. Really appreciate everybody being here. Thanks so much. All right, here we go. Let's dive in. I've got first a clip from Carolyn Levitt as she was speaking in and around everything that was going on with the White House and the Bukele visit. Check this out.
Real quick, the president of El Salvador is coming to the White House on Monday. Does President Trump want him to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia with him?
The Supreme Court made their ruling last night very clear that it's the administration's responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return. I believe the Department of Justice just filed another brief in the lower court. I would defer you to that for any updates. But as you mentioned, President Bukele will be here at the White House on Monday to talk about the cooperation that is at an all-time high. And we very much appreciate President Bukele and El Salvador's cooperation and the repatriation of El Salvadorian gang members who the previous administration allowed to infiltrate our country.
So again, this was in advance of Bukele showing up. He is here at the White House today as we speak. It is Monday. Really appreciate everybody being here at the Chris Highland Show, the inaugural podcast. But I want to dive in. We've got a clip. We've got a couple clips from the actual meeting in the Oval Office that was open to not the public, but it was open to the press. We're going to start with Marco Rubio weighing in, Stephen Miller weighing in. This is absolutely phenomenal stuff. Then we're going to dive into Stephen Miller's amazing explanation of all this and his brutal takedown of both Fox and Caitlin Collins, who has just got to be one of the dumbest media talking heads out there. But here we go. Really appreciate everybody being here. Thanks so much. Away we go. These are sick people. Mark, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
The court specifically said he couldn't be sent back to El Salvador, though.
Point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if this...
Absolutely. Stephen Miller just owning Caitlin Collins in that brief. We're going to have a little bit more because he dives back in and offers Caitlin Collins the opportunity to go absolutely rope-a-dope herself, which, true to form, she does. But before we get into that, I want to show this clip. Stephen Miller was on Fox giving essentially an elongated version of the explanation that he just gave, but it is absolutely imperative that you, as my audience, as the American public, understand that the 9-0 ruling by the court, as that the media has portrayed over and over and over again as a Trump loss, as a repudiation of Trump's deportation of Abrego Garcia, is 100% the opposite. What the court said very clearly is that no court in the land can compel the supreme executive, the singular executive of Article 2, being the President of the United States, to conduct any foreign policy. They cannot compel him to take any foreign policy stance, to conduct any foreign policy, or go and mandate that another sovereign nation do anything. So they essentially gave the president carte blanche. Now, they did say that based on a previous court's ruling that he shouldn't have been deported to El Salvador, that the executive branch should facilitate his return. However, Stephen Miller even talks about that point and the fact that the DOJ has already filed a brief saying that the previous ruling by the lower court saying he couldn't be deported to El Salvador is also incorrect because it violates the law. Let's dive into this clip. This is absolutely amazing. I want you to really pay attention to what Stephen Miller goes into here because he lays this out so succinctly and brilliantly. It is phenomenal. Check this out.
DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was.
I mean, and Bill's a friendly guy. I love it when Stephen Miller just owns these media talking heads. Now he's a friend. I have to correct you because you are basically wrong on every single thing that you just said. This is great.
It was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So we appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill, it's important. He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's
believe
an illegal alien from El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In
I love that he interrupts. Shut up, Bill. This is important. Let me lay out all the facts. But the first thing that I want to make sure everybody understands, despite media reports to the contrary, the Trump administration handily won the Supreme Court's case over Abrego Garcia. No district court judge, no judge, period, can compel the chief executive of the United States to conduct any foreign policy whatsoever. The Article 3 courts have zero authority, zero jurisdiction, zero power to effectuate any foreign policy whatsoever. That function resides solely within the Article 2 executive powers. Now, he's going to get into why even the judge ruling that you couldn't deport him to El Salvador is wrong.
From El Salvador, hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order. Furthermore, the gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from El Salvador. Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien?
I love it. Now they should have done this last week. Stephen Miller should have been out saying this exact thing last week, saying, no, guys, you don't realize. He has been ordered deported. He is here illegally. He's been ordered deported once. He now has a final order of deportation. We must deport him. He has no legal right to be on U.S. soil. He has no legal standing in the United States. And then Hammer asks him, well, what about this withholding order? And he says it perfectly. Once you are deemed part of a foreign terrorist organization, and again, Trump is using the Alien Sedition Act, so he is now part of a foreign terrorist organization. Withholding orders no longer apply. He can be deported back to his home country no matter what. And where else are you going to send him? You can't deport someone from El Salvador to Colombia, unless the only exception to that is, as Miller said, when we're trying to deport people to Venezuela and Venezuela refuses them entry, says, no, we don't want these people. They cannot come into our country. Then they have to be sent somewhere. So they are detained in prison. And in this particular case, El Salvador has offered at a very low rate to house those Venezuelan prisoners. So that's why we have people being sent to SCOTUS in El Salvador, because they are Venezuelans. In this particular case, the Abrego Garcia was an El Salvadoran. He's an El Salvadoran citizen. It was Bukele who imprisoned him in SCOTUS, not the United States. And he cannot be withheld. There's no withholding order because he's part of a foreign terrorist organization.
You haven't even allowed me to ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please. Tell me.
So Marco Rubio on Sunday morning said this. On Saturday night, another 10 criminals from
All right. So before we
we're not
going to get to the rest of that story, but he's absolutely right. Where do you want us to deport him? Shall we deport him to China? Does China want him? How about Venezuela? What other absolute miserable country should we deport him to? the only place to sensibly deport him is to El Salvador. And because he's part of a foreign terrorist organization, the withholding order does no longer apply. This is fantastic stuff for Miller. I wish this was out last week. They could have, the Trump administration and the conservative media could have much more efficiently and quickly flipped the ridiculous media narrative on its head that Trump had lost the Supreme Court decision. No, he did not. They won 9-0. On the merits, no district court judge can compel foreign policy. The strongest thing they could do is say the administration must facilitate the return of this person. And by facilitate, that means they don't block him at the border. They essentially accept him, put him back in ICE detainer, put him back in prison in America, and deport him somewhere else. I mean, he would literally be here for less than 24 hours. They take him in, they deport him out. But at this point, if you want to abide by the withholding order, then you simply roll a dice and say, "Hey, let's get Yahtzee dice. Let's number every country in the world, and there we go. Where we were deported." It's ridiculous. So Stephen Miller is absolutely right. Now he continued that vein of thought in the Oval Office vein here. As we get into Bukele actually being asked about this whole deportation. So I want to fast forward a little bit on this one. All right. So let's dive in. We're back in. We're going to go back to the Oval Office now. This is great stuff.
From El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which is, I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask
Supreme
for
Court's asking to. And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it for the court can only be directed to him.
I love what he said. Under no scenario does Abrego Garcia ever end up living in the United States. He is a foreign citizen. He is here illegally. He has multiple deportation orders. If El Salvador, at its sole sovereign discretion, says, "Hey, we're sending Abrego Garcia back to you," the United States will not block him. They will accept him. They will incarcerate him in ICE detainer and redeport him within a matter of hours. So I love Stephen Miller has absolutely laid this out beautifully. Now, check this out, because he basically invites Caitlin Collins to rope-a-dope herself, and she she absolutely obliges.
Do you plan to return him?
Well, I can't. I'm supposed to not suggesting that I'll smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? It's only how can I smuggle?
I love what Brent said. I love it. Bukele says, "You're not suggesting that I smuggle someone into the United States, do you?" And the president goes, "Don't forget, you're talking to CNN." All right. So now I'm going to play all of Bukele's answer so you can hear it. This is absolutely brilliant stuff.
President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I'll smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? It's only how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They would absolutely love it. That is the soundbite of the day. First of all, do you want me to smuggle him back in the United States? That's a preposterous question, to which Trump has to say, "Oh, you're talking to CNN. Realize, check out your audience." But then he says, and we're not going to release him in our country because we don't want foreign terrorists. We don't want criminals. We don't want gang members in our own country. So that's not going to happen. And then he says, what do you guys want? We turned El Salvador from the worst, most crime-ridden country to the safest country. You want us to go back again? Yes. Unfortunately, that is exactly what the leftists, the Democrats, the globalists, and the propaganda media want to have happen. They want that to happen in El Salvador. They want it to happen they're making it happen in Europe, and they want it to happen in the United States. They want the criminals running free. They want massive crime. They want an epidemic of crime that can only be solved as they defund local police with a federal police force that they would control. And you're seeing it happen in New York. This entire the bill that came out of Albany last year or 2 years ago, where it mandated that whenever someone was arrested for a criminal offense, that the prosecution had to give to the defense all of the information regarding every witness, including name, including address, including contact info, so that basically the criminals could go after the witnesses. That has had an extremely chilling effect, and that is why Hochul is not going to see the light of day for a second term. She's going to get defeated in the primary. She's trying to walk back from that debacle of an Albany bill, but she signed it. So yes, they absolutely want the criminals running rampant, to answer Bukele's question. So this was absolutely brilliant. So to go back, just to reiterate, we won the Supreme Court decision 9-0. It's a major win for the Trump organization, for the Trump administration. And so we're going to keep talking about this so the American public can understand just what's happened over the last week. Now, at the same time, massive news out of the border. And that is the fact that Donald Trump has pulled a phenomenal move. I mean, this is the 3-point shot of 3-point shots. It's not even a Hail Mary because it's something that he absolutely has the power to do. This is the trick play where basically Trump does the flea flicker and the wide receiver is absolutely open 50 yards down the field. They nail it and it's a 90-yard touchdown. That's what this is. Trump has militarized the southern border as much as he possibly can. Check this out.
And, we like the partnership that we have. We think we have a good working relationship.
I love it. Donald Trump basically, I'm not even going to say in the dark of night, because Donald Trump, did this full public, but because he has flooded the zone, because he has the media so whacked out over everything else that he's doing, from tariffs to mass deportations to the trans executive orders to everything else that is going on. They have not talked about this, and this is massive. Donald Trump started by proving he did not need a congressional bill to close the border and lock down illegal immigration. He brought it from a high of 10,000 illegal crossings a day down to under 100. But now he has taken it to the next level. He has militarized half of the southern border. And the reason I say half is because what he has done is, by executive order, he has militarized the Roosevelt Reservation. For anybody who doesn't know, in California, Arizona, and New Mexico, on those three borders, there is a 60-foot strip of public land that sits on the border. Donald Trump, basically by executive order, because he has the ability to do so, and this is not you can't jurisprudence this thing out of existence. He absolutely has the power to do this because it's federal public land. He has militarized that 60-foot swath for almost, 1,500 miles? That is now a United States military base. It is a military reservation. It is now military land, which means anybody who crosses the border at that point now does not walk into U.S. Private land or just basic U.S. public land or U.S. forest land or any of that. No. They now walk onto a military installation. So this idea of border crossings just being a misdemeanor, as fake as that was and ridiculous as that was from people like Caitlin Collins and Sonny Holston and all these other people. No. It is not a misdemeanor. Now it is an absolute direct felony because you have trespassed onto a military installation. And the military now has the ability to arrest you and immediately turn you around via ICE and deport you. No judges, no hearings, no nothing. You are on military soil, you're out. And so he's done this for half of the border. He can only do it for half because everything in Texas on the border, there is no Roosevelt Reservation in Texas. All the land abutting the border in Texas is private land. Or it's National Park Service, National Forest Service, which does not carry the same ability to militarize like the Roosevelt Reservation does. So he cannot do this in Texas. But essentially, he has taken half the border and he's allowed for 10,000 plus military personnel to augment the Border Patrol, meaning most of those Border Patrol agents can now be shifted to Texas, to places like Eagle Pass and Reynosa that have been problematic. And now we're looking at potential border crossings dropping into the teens. This is absolutely amazing from President Trump. 100% love what he's doing here. So check out this article from US News because they get it too. Military to occupy public land on southern border, create buffer zone preventing illegal entry. Trump has already said that he is sending several thousand troops, up to 10,000. So now the border is going to get even more secure. And as Stephen Miller said, this is a 90-10 issue. The mass deportations of criminal illegals and the absolute closing of the border to illegal crossings is a 90-10 issue. And Donald Trump is squarely in the 90, and he is hammering it out of the park. When it comes time for the midterm elections, Donald Trump and the Trump administration and every Republican in Congress will be able to stand on Trump's record. Under Biden and Kamala Harris, 10,000 crossings a day. Under Trump, we're in the teens. That's all it takes. That is an optic, that is a story, that is a record that the Dems cannot touch, and they have no defense against it because Biden could have done this, but Biden didn't want to, and they didn't want him to. They kept saying we have to have a bill. No, you don't. And Donald Trump will turn around and say that the Democrats are absolutely for every criminal, illegal alien here in this country. They have zero empathy for Laken Riley, for Rachel Marin, for Jocelyn Nungare, for their parents, for their loved ones, for the thousands of women that have been victimized by these criminals, for the 500,000 children that have been trafficked into the United States under the Biden administration, with the full complicit agreement of the Democrat Party, of the establishment, of the corrupt, of the globalists. That's what they want. Trump has something to completely destroy the Dems on. Now, in the next 12 months, I believe we're going to see the economy turn around. I believe we're going to have a whole bunch of other stuff that he is going to be able to stand on when we get to the midterms. But right now, promises made, promises kept. The border is an absolute lockdown compared to what it was under Biden, and they are effectuating mass deportations. Now, we've got to get it well above 1,000 a day. These mass deportations, we've got to get to 10,000 a day, combining self-deportations as well as ICE deportations. So let's see that happen. That's the next step. Tom Homan's got his work cut out for him, but let's also see the prosecution of politicians who are operating under sanctuary city or sanctuary state policies and blocking or thwarting Homeland Security and ICE from deporting these people. That's what I want to see. I want to see real accountability now. Hey, thanks everybody for rolling up. We have to plug the holes on the Canadian border. That is the next step. Right now, it's pretty interesting because you've got fentanyl issues in Canada. You've also got now that we're closing the southern border, I think we're probably going to see more fentanyl trying to come across the Canadian border. Realize that the big problem with Canada was that Canada was allowing, one of the reasons that Trump tariffed them, Canada was allowing all of the raw materials, the seed chemicals to fentanyl to be shipped. They were allowing them in their country. And Canada was a massive producer of fentanyl. Even though most of the fentanyl didn't come across the Canadian border, they brought in the chemicals from China. They produced the fentanyl, then shipped that fentanyl to Mexico, where it came across the southern border. Well, now that southern border is all but closed. I expect to see a lot more problems with fentanyl crossing the northern border. But again, Trump is already working on that angle with Canada. So we'll never see what it was the same as it was, just 2 years ago. Thank you so much, everybody. If you could please share this with everybody you know. This is the new channel, the Chris Highland Show podcast. This is where we will be posting videos and lives. We're going to try to go every single day. We've got a whole bunch of other stuff going on, jobs and whatnot, but we are now monetized. We are here at Chris Highland Show. Please share this with everybody that you know. Everybody that you know that was a subscriber to Courageous Media, if you could, please reach out to them. Let them know that this is where we're at now. And please come over here, subscribe, turn on the notifications, share this with all your friends, relatives, acquaintances, enemies, anybody whose name, email address, or phone number that you know. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, God is good and He is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. Till I catch you next time.